Welcome to Video Aided Instructions Upgrade Your Writing series. This is the first program in the series called Pre-Writing. Let me ask you a question. When do you start writing? Well, that's easy. You start writing when you start writing the first sentence. Well, actually, no. Research has shown that writing starts long before you actually write that first sentence. It starts when you plan your writing. We call this pre-writing. It's the series of decisions that you make as you actually think about your writing. Pre-writing has a number of steps to it. One of those steps is considering the assignment, what you have to write about. Another one of those steps is thinking about your audience, the people who will read your writing. Third one is your purpose. That's your reason for writing. And the last one is gathering your ideas. We call that brainstorming. Learning the steps in this process can help you write much more easily and much more successfully. It's not very difficult to do, and in this lesson, you'll learn all about it. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and list the 4 steps in pre-writing. Then come back. Use this model. Pre-writing includes considering, and the 4th item. Here are the answers. Number 1 is considering the assignment. Number 2 is considering your audience. Remember the importance of audience. Number 3 is considering your purpose. Purpose is your reason for writing. Remember there are 4 purposes. And number 4 is brainstorming ideas. Let's start with the assignment. There are 2 things that are going to happen. Either you're going to have an assignment or you're going to have to make up your own. Let's assume the teacher has given you an assignment. In these cases, you must answer that question, not any other question. You must directly address what you've been asked to do. Let me give you some examples of that. First, let's say the assignment is choose a favorite family food, such as lasagna, tacos, or wontons. In an essay, tell the reader how to make that dish. Well, in this instance, what you're doing is you're giving steps in a specific order, from first to last. So the first step might be gathering the ingredients, the second step might be browning the meat, and so on and so on and so on until you get to the last step of the process, which, as we all know, is enjoying the meal. Second assignment. Why did Brutus's speech in defense of killing Julius Caesar fail? Well, in this case, you've got to go back to Shakespeare's play. And to persuade your readers that your opinion is correct, you've got to give specific examples from that play. So you might quote lines, you might refer to scenes, and you would then use that textual proof to make your point. Third one, choose a place that you've always wanted to visit. Tell your reader all about that place. Well, in this case, what you're doing is you're describing the place. So you would gather a lot of details about the place, and those details would help your readers understand why you want to visit that place. Here's the 4th one. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. Well, this is clearly a story. You would start the story with this sentence. Here, what you would do is you would tell a story that would include characters, plot, setting, dialogue, and theme. So let's review for a moment. What you've done is you've taken a look at the assignment, you've analyzed the assignment, and you've figured out what it is that you must do as you plan or pre-write this assignment. Now, what happens when you're given a very broad subject rather than a specific assignment? Well, in this case, what you've got to do is narrow that very broad generalization into a specific topic. So you might get something like health or music or the Electoral College, the Civil War, a famous scientist, foreign policy. You know you can't write an essay on that because the topic is much too big. So what you do is you narrow it down to fulfill the limitations of your paper. Most junior high, high school, and college papers run between 350 and 500 words. That's the amount that you're expected to write between 45 minutes and about an hour. So now you want to narrow that topic down to something that you can express in 350 to 500 words. So let's say your topic is computers. We can narrow that down to, are computers being overemphasized in school? Or we can narrow that down to a how-to paper, perhaps how to build your own computer. Or we could narrow that down to a descriptive paper, how computers have made our lives better. Those aren't the only ways that you can do it, of course, because you would consider your purpose and your audience, as we mentioned in the beginning. Let's say your topic is animal rights. You might write about a persuasive paper. Are zoos cruel rather than educational? Or you might write about the importance of testing certain pharmaceuticals on animals before they're tested on humans. Or you might write a story. You might write about how your cat has more rights than you do. And you would pick the one that would best suit your purpose and your audience. Say your topic is for history. You're writing about the Civil War. Well, you can't write about the Civil War. It's much too large. So what you might do instead is narrow that down to the purpose of the Civil War. You might argue that the Civil War was more about states' rights than it was about enslaved people. Or you might argue about the causes of the Civil War in a mechanical sense. You might say that the cotton gin helped bring about the Civil War. Let's say your topic is sports. You might pick a favorite sport like soccer and discuss why soccer is becoming so popular in America. Or you might write a story about when you were part of the winning soccer game. You could make up anything that would suit your purpose and your audience, as long as it was narrow enough that you could do it within about 45 minutes to an hour. Let's say you're back in history class or social studies and you've got to write about voting. Maybe the Electoral College, how the Electoral College works. That would be a how-to paper. Or the importance of getting young people to vote and to become involved in their civic responsibility. Or maybe you'd write a story about the first time that you became aware of voting and maybe you went into a voting booth with one of your parents. How about health care? That's a big topic now. Maybe you could argue about the government should spend more money for health care. Or you might want to tell a story about getting a very bad cold and having difficulty recovering from it. Or you could talk about how the government should increase funding for rare or so-called orphan diseases. And another good argumentative paper might be school should be held year-round. You should go to school all the time and not have summer off. Or maybe a story about the first day of school and what you remember from being 5 years old. You get the idea. What you're doing now is you're taking a very broad, general topic that's too big for a paper, and you're narrowing it down to suit your audience and your time and your purpose. Now, what happens if you're not even given a broad, general topic? What happens if your teacher just says to you, well, write? In that case, you've got to start with your own ideas and what interests you. Think about the kind of stuff you like to read, for example. If you find the topic interesting, chances are you'll write about it with more detail, and your audience will find it more interesting as well. Furthermore, you'll know a lot more about it because you've read about it extensively. So you'll be less tense about the writing because you'll have more details and examples to draw on. And this will make the writing easier and more fun as well as more interesting. Now, topics really do matter. as I'm sure you've realized by now, because a good topic can make your paper very interesting, but an unsuitable topic can make your paper not so interesting. How can you tell if a topic is unsuitable? Well, first of all, you can't write about it in the time that you've been given. It's just too big. Second of all, it's very boring, or it's been written about so much that nobody really much cares about it. Third, you don't know enough about it and you don't have time to do the research to learn about it. And four, the topic is inappropriate or offensive or even vulgar. And in that case, your audience is going to be turned off in the very beginning. So here you are, you're sitting there in class and you're racking your brains and you see the clock ticking away. You've got to find a topic and you've got to decide if it's suitable. Here's a checklist that you can use. Keep this in your head the next time you're faced with a topic. First of all, is my topic too limited? Is it too narrow? Sometimes you're so excited about the topic that you make it so narrow that you don't have enough to write about. Well, in these cases, what you've got to do is make it just a little bit broader so that you can get about a page or a page and a half double-spaced. Number two, maybe it's the opposite. Your topic is still much too broad. You think you've narrowed it sufficiently, but you're really not quite there yet. Think about how this topic is expressed in literature. If other writers need an entire book about this topic, chances are that it's just too big for you to do in a paper, in a class period, or even in an evening. Number three, what happens if your topic is too technical? You may not have the background to discuss it. In this case, throw the topic out and start again. Unless you have the background to write about it, it's not going to come out very well. You'll do a lot of vague generalities rather than specific details. You don't have the time to teach yourself nuclear physics or calculus or how to fly a helicopter. So pick a topic that's not too technical. What about topics that are sort of yesterday's news? If everybody knows everything about your topic, chances are no one's going to want to read it. I've been teaching a long time, and I get a lot of papers that I've read over and over and over again. And frankly, the minute I see gun control or a topic about raising the driving age or lowering the drinking age, I go, been there, done that, and I'm already bored with it. Now, the writer knows this because I've said to them, don't do this anymore, but still I get those topics. So think about a topic that's a little bit fresh and hasn't been done to death. Next, what happens if your topic is a little bit too controversial? You're afraid that you might offend your audience because it's something that they might not agree with your opinion. In this case, don't take the risk. Pick a topic that suits your audience and yourself. Papers that shock and offend take unnecessary risks. Next, do I really like my topic enough to write a paper about it? Maybe you're